Hi, and welcome to this webinar. It's really good to have you here this morning. It's great. We're going to be talking today with James Sowden from J. Sowden Accountancy Services. Now, I'm Debbie Clement-Large, and I'm here from Wife Follow the Herd. And just to let you know that you're in attendee listen only mode. If you have any questions, there is a chat box. Please put your questions in the chat box, and we will do our best to answer them as we go through. So we've got hopefully a reasonably fun session this morning. We're going to be having a look at business figures. See, most people, when they think about business figures, it does make them feel glum. So we're going to try and make it a bit more exciting for you. So we've got a presentation, or a really nice presentation to get through. So I'll just start sharing that with you now. So as I said, my name is Debbie, I'm from Why Follow the Herd, and I'm doing part of a series at the moment. So today, talking to James Sowden. And there you go, there's me again. So I'm all about empowering intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs to effect positive and creative change in their lives and their businesses. So helping to make a difference, maybe makes you see things in a slightly different way. Because as Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or think you can't, either way, you're right. Now, part of the series I'm doing is I've been talking to a variety of different experts in different fields. So we've had one with a transformational change expert looking at why projects fail and how to avoid that. I've spoken to a very experienced international leadership coach, and she's taught us about effective leadership, and also how to be a great leader. And we've got this management accounting one as well today with James. There's some other ones on my website, on my events and resources page. So have a look. They're also on my YouTube channel, which is Debbie Clement-Large. So have a look. There's some great free resources on there, some wonderful information. So today, this is all about, do monthly figures make you feel a bit glum? And for a lot of people, they do, you know, it's something that people feel that they need to do, but it doesn't necessarily feel incredibly exciting. But, you know, figures are the foundations for our businesses. We need to understand them and make really good use of those figures because they help us make our decisions going forward. And we always want to make good decisions. We want our businesses to be long-term options. We want to use our money wisely, just as we would our own purses at home and our own money. We want to do the same with our businesses as well. But for so many people, numbers just scare the life out of you. You know, you just look at them and they're just numbers. You know, people don't like numbers. They like words and they like stories and narratives, and just numbers, you know, it just comes up. It's like a lot of people almost have like a dyslexic view of numbers. And I kind of get that, you know, they're not always presented in the right way or in an easy way for people that don't like the finance side of business. And you can really get to the stage where you just want to lose the will to live at looking at them. And then the problem is you don't make good business decisions. And no matter what your finance people say or do, you just end up still feeling confused about where you're going and where you should spend your money, and what does this term mean? What does that term mean? What does that, you know, what do all these things really mean for your business? But what James and I are here today is just say, look, you're not alone. We're trying to offer some support and trying to just have a look at things in a slightly different way. And hopefully you'll get something out of this and understand that, you know, figures can be a little more fun than they sometimes come across. We want you to feel really laid back and relaxed about stuff. You know, this is how business should be. The finances should be there to support you so that you can go off and be creative and innovative. And, you know, we want you to feel laid back and happy about what you know and the foundations that are part of your business. We certainly don't want you to feel like you're on a monthly roller coaster ride, because that's just scary, isn't it? You know, you just put figures together just for the sake of needing to put figures together, and you know, it might not be a nice journey, and we want to take that sort of pain, that scariness away from you. So as I said, we're talking to James from J. Sowden Accountancy Services. Now with James, you've got to forget the tax returns. You've got to forget closure of accounts. James is there to help you make the best well-informed decisions out of your figures on a regular basis throughout the year. This is about monthly helping businesses to be able to understand their figures and make better well-informed decisions. Now, he's a management accountant, same actually as I am. That's something I used to do. I don't do that anymore. And he's worked in the private sector and in the voluntary and the not-for-profit sector. So he's got lots and lots of experience in different areas. So we'll just say hello to James. Nice to have you as part of the webinar.
Hello, good morning. Yes, thank you very much, Debbie.
So James is. We're going to be having lots of different things today, aren't we, James? Do you want to have a talk through the sorts of things we're going to be having a look at?
Yes, we will. So again, good morning. What we're going to look at this morning is just a basic look, and hopefully give you more understanding of our terms that we use, so that you can feel more happy with the sort of financial statements that are presented to you, and hopefully just make you think about your accounts a little bit more and understand what's happening a little bit more. So accountancy standards change every now and then. So the two main statements that we're going to be looking at are the statement of financial position, which is a bit of a mouthful, and the income statement. But realistically, other than the name change, there's no real difference to what they always used to be, which is a balance sheet and a profit and loss account. And I think most people are fairly happy and comfortable with those terms. So we'll continue using those terms. But it just gives you an understanding of how the accountancy standards change, and they introduce posh terms for things. But it's not that scary. We'll also have a look at a bit of a cash flow. So you can think about how your cash is coming in, going out, how the impact of those transactions impacts your bank balance. And we're going to put it into a fictitious company scenario, again, and hopefully a bit of a fun way that can, again, just help any understanding that we may want to get across. So if we move on to then the balance sheet, shall we? So the balance sheet is literally just a snapshot. All it is, at any one given time, it's correct. And then after that time, well, essentially it's wrong again because it's historical. So we're just looking at something in the moment. It pretty much shows you the main capital elements which you've got. So maybe that's shareholders' funds, maybe that's a loan, or preferably some retained profit from operations. So where your capital elements come from. And then also what assets that you've got. So whether you've got some fixed assets, some machinery, some plants, some vehicles.
So these are long-term things, aren't they, fixed assets?
Fixed asset, yeah. Machinery that's going to be used 3, 4, 5 years, used time and time again, and used in the generation of your profits, basically. And then the balance sheet also comprises of some debtors and creditors. Again, just shows you what's owed to you by other people and what you owe to other people, to give you a really good position of where you stand financially. But again, it's only at any one given point in time.
So just to clarify on that, when we're talking about shareholders' funds, you're talking about people that have invested money into your business.
Yes.
It could be your own as well, couldn't it?
Yeah, so most shareholders' funds, if you take a small business, it might be just yourselves, you some capital that you've put in yourself. Obviously, larger companies will obviously put shares on the market for people to buy, but it's essentially people buying into your business, or essentially you buying into your own business.
Brilliant. Okay, so should we go on to the next one then?
Yeah, the income statement or profit and loss. Usually these are prepared, or most small businesses will have them prepared annually. Obviously what I try and do as a management accountant is prepare them more regularly, so that you can see where you are, what's happening in shorter periods of time. So all businesses need to be profitable, they just do. So you need to keep that retained profit in the business so that you can continue to invest and grow your business year after year. So
it's a bit like having piggy bank savings for a business, sort of, isn't it? Actually, when we're talking about retained profit, it's putting money, aside and growing that money to be able to use at another time when we want to do another project or something, or buy something new for the business.
Absolutely. So what we're aiming to do is have more money at the end of the year or at the end of the period than what we do at the start. So we start off with an amount, we make some money, we pay out some expenditure, and obviously what we want to have at the end is more money than what we started with. So, I mean, that's fairly basic, obviously, but that's the goal. And with the increasing cost, the increasing draw on our expenditure, that's becoming harder and harder. But obviously we need to just try and see where we can save money so that we can put money back into our reserves so that we continue to invest in our business and grow it over time so it becomes a nice sustainable business, and not just a short-term thing that goes bust. We certainly don't want that.
No, absolutely. But the whole thing about understanding your finances is really to actually make sure that your business continues to go, because this is just the foundations, isn't it, to support your creativity and your innovation and the new products and services and everything you want to provide. And the money just kind of underpins and allows you to do that, which is kind of why it's so important. So should we go on to the next one then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, so we briefly touched on reserves. So reserves are the amount of money that you have afterwards, really. So as we say, if we've made a profit, that money comes into our reserves. So we can do a few things with our reserves. We can either have new assets or replace existing assets, and again, those assets using to generate the income that we need, can be put aside for a rainy day if we wish. Can be sat there. Having a healthy cash balance is not necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, with some good cash flow management, we might be able to see areas where cash is getting a bit thin. So having a little bit of a build up of funds is always useful. And it can also be used for working capital. And we're going to touch on working capital a little bit in a second, I believe. But working capital is just the amount of money that's out of your hands, basically, and it's the time it takes for you to initially pay out and get it back again. I think the next slide might be a little bit better one to actually explain that a bit better.
And also think about the rainy day when you said about building up funds and that, and actually it was good to have some money in your pocket to be able to pay your bills as you need to. But also you can think about investing that as well, can't you? Sometimes you can buy some short-term investments and actually make some income on some of your spare capital as well, can't you?
Absolutely. You know, as part of our management training, you know, we were told, you know, if you've got money to invest, you should invest it in things that obviously, as Debbie said, make you money. So really, one view would be not to have any spare cash at all, because you should be investing it in activities which are making you a return. But realistically, it's always nice to have that just sat there, so that we can, you know, buy an asset if we need to, that we're not running to the bank every time we need a bit of cash.
So you touched on working capital, didn't you? And that's it's a term that gets used so much, but people do have a problem really kind of understanding what working capital means. So would you like to talk us through that, James?
Yeah, so here we have a number of items which would be classed as working capital. So if you glance to the bottom one on the list of current assets, it says cash at bank. So this example means that when we look at our bank statement or we look online, we've only actually got £200 in the bank. But working capital is also what's tying up our money. So we actually have got, so in this example, some raw materials which we've spent out on to purchase. We've got some work in progress, which is then, you know, turning that raw material into something. We've then got some finished goods which are probably sat in a warehouse as stock ready to sell. So in that example, we've got £460 which we've actually spent out in making sure now that we've either got a product to sell or we've got products in the pipeline that we can sell shortly. We've also got their debtors of £300. So we've got goods that we've sold to the value of £300. Those goods are gone. But those people haven't yet paid us for those goods. So we're out of pocket to the tune of another £300 as well. So added to the £200 that's in the bank, we've got assets of £960, but realistically only £200, which is actually of any use to us at this moment in time. Now, underneath that, we have some current liabilities. So what we have there are some creditors. So we've made some purchases ourselves. and then we need to pay our creditors back. So again, in this example, we've got £160. So that's actually cash sat in our bank that we need to pay over to our creditors. So once we deduct that, our working capital is essentially £800 of usable money. But to put that into the working capital cycle, what we're trying to do then is say, well, we've spent out some money, we've purchased some raw materials. So from the very day that you purchase that material to then the day that you finally get that money back from the sale, from the debtor who's finally paid you, your money is not yours to use. It's tied up, and it's sort of out of your control to a degree until you get that money back again. So you're out of pocket to that tune constantly whilst you're in business. So you've got to have £800 in this example spare on a regular basis, which you just can't access or use because it's tied up. So we need to essentially free up working capital or get our working capital cycle reduced so that the time from us paying out money to getting it back it is as short as possible.
So we could look at it to say that we've paid out £60 for raw materials, but if we really needed some money to generate some money back into our business really quickly, we could maybe look to sell those raw materials on. Or if we had some work in progress, we had some partially made goods, and we were short of money, there's ways of raising some cash, finished goods. Could we sell those on quickly? Could we sell them as a discount somewhere if we needed to raise that money? And as James said, that the debtors are the people that owe us money, they've bought our goods and services on credit and we're just waiting for them to pay their invoices. And the cash in the bank is great. That's the bit we need to pay our bills with. And then we have the current assets, the creditors. That's the people we owe money to. So we bought our raw materials and they sent us an invoice, and then we've got the 30 days or whatever the terms are to pay that invoice. So that's who we owe. So we owe £160 out. So it's right, because a lot of people, James, I don't know about you, but they find this little bit a bit. People talk about working capital a lot, but they find this a bit more difficult to understand. But hopefully we've gone through, and I think you've explained it really well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of people that they are very good. Most business people are in business because they're good at what they do. So they buy the materials that they need, they sell the goods. But understanding that the financial movements that underpin all those activities, like you say, it's a bit of a minefield, and that's where we come in, really.
So let's have a. Oops. So that leads us really on to sort of cash, because cash comes in from our sales and then cash goes out from our expenditure, doesn't it? So do you want to help talk us through a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully most businesses will have a reasonable grasp of what sales they've got. Terms such as order book are used quite widely so that people have got some sort of indication of what's coming in, so they can forecast some cash coming in, or at least sales coming in. And there is obviously a difference between sales and cash, certainly if you're on credit. Obviously if your sales on cash, then that's not a problem. But you want to have a look at what you're going to be getting in, and then basically what then's going out. What are your raw materials? What are your other expenses? What have you got coming up? Some things happen once a year, some things happen once a month. So the amount that you spend out will probably vary slightly every month. So it's understanding the movements of cash coming in to the cash going out. So essentially, what are you going to be left with at the end of each month? And I would imagine each month will be different. So it's just trying to understand which months you might be a bit tighter than others. So some months, you'll probably have plenty of cash left over, lots of sales, not too much outgoings. And then obviously that'll be followed up with other months where not so much coming in, but a big whack of expenses to go out. So it's just making sure you've got cash in the bank to cover yourself. Obviously many successful, profitable businesses do unfortunately have cash flow issues, because it's just understanding that relationship of making sure that cash coming in is then used to pay off your suppliers or used to buy more raw materials. And it's obviously maintaining the amount of cash at the bank is just a difficult balancing act, really. And obviously good forecasting, looking forward to seeing what's coming in is just a a reasonable way then of trying to understand how you might look in a month's time, in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time, for example.
So you're absolutely right, James. I mean, knowing it on a monthly by month basis is absolutely key, because we want our journey through our business to be quite a bit, a bit of a lazy river. And if you plan in advance, planning is such a really important thing. And actually saying that, I've got a Planning for Success your online program starting soon, which it covers a bit of this, and it's all for business to be able to help them think about how they set themselves up and how they get themselves as herd leader. And actually, this is one of the things that I cover. But if you, depending on what system you use, certainly having, even if you just do it on even if you've just got a basic spreadsheet, you're a really, really startup small business, and actually just having columns for each month of the year. Always look sort of 12 months in advance, at least 12 months, and then have money coming in for each month that you're expecting to sell, and then whatever bills you're expecting to pay each month. Like James said, some months you'll have certain bills, maybe quarterly bills, some you'll have monthly, maybe your broadband, other things you'll have. If you've got staff, that'll be monthly as well. And actually at the bottom, you just take away the money coming in and the expenditure going out, and then you can see how much you've got left in the bank. And then you carry that forward to the following month, so that you're taking your income coming in, your expenditure going out, and then you get to see at the bottom a cumulative total of which months you need to think about obtaining some finance. If you need an overdraft just to tie you over for a couple of months, say you've got a big bill going out in July and that leaves you a bit short of money. So it's a really nice planner, isn't it, James?
Absolutely, and quite crucial, really.
So let's just go over. So we've gone through some of the basics. So can we just have a really quick recap then, James?
Yeah. So obviously we've got money coming into our business from a variety of sources, really. So in terms of capital, we've got share capital that we might issue, loan capital if we need a business loan, and then reserves are essentially retained profit. So profit from previous years, which we then managed to accumulate and is there for future spending. And then to offset that, we've then got money going out. So in either capital assets, which are useful in the generation of income, and then as we've discussed, working capital, the materials or to buy either goods or services to operate our business in the first place. And then if you've really got a bit of cash left over, potentially some investments. But again, all investments should yield you some return.
Absolutely. And you don't want to leave yourself short, do you, by investing, fixing it for so many months and then actually finding you're a bit short yourself?
Well, that's a whole different issue. Some people could argue that if you could make more return on investments than you could from some loan finance, but I don't think we want to get into that right now. But, that one's a bit of a minefield. But yes, you don't want to leave yourself caught short. So, there's all sorts of elements and risk and returns things that to consider with investments.
So let's have a look then at a fictional company. So I've set up this company completely made up. So I've called it Meals to Dine For. And let's just say, for the sake of this webinar, that this is your business and you set it up 10 years ago, that you invested 60,000 in it to start it up, that you currently employ 10 staff, and your whole mission, your vision for your business is to make and deliver freshly cooked meals to homes within your local area. Now, your avatar is your ideal customer, are families where both parents work. So mum and dad out all day, full time. They've got 2 children, have very busy social lives. They do lots of after school clubs and things like that. So, life is really busy and full for you. So the attraction of wanting to purchase meals every day so that when they come home, actually Meals to Dine For can just deliver a nice either 1, 2 or 3 course meal to the home, so that you get some really nice organic, locally sourced, hot, lovely and tasty food every day. Now, you as a business owner are finding that your costs are increasing. We've got living wage, your business rates are affecting you as well. But you're over the next 12 months, you're thinking that your number of customers are going to stay roughly about the same. You're going to lose some, you're going to gain some through the year, but overall they kind of even out. And also, you actually cook 363 days a year. So, you're providing meals all that time. So there's only Christmas Day and maybe Boxing Day that you're closed. All the rest of the time you're open preparing meals for people. But, you're finding, you're feeling at the moment like money's going down the drain a little bit. You're kind of feeling a little bit stuck. So, as we said, you employ 10 people. So let's break that down a bit further. We've got a kitchen manager. We've got 2 cooks, 3 office staff that are taking your orders. And we've got 4 drivers that are delivering. So last year, you turned over 300,000 and it cost you £280,000 to be able to operate. So you made a £20,000 profit last year. Now this year, you're expecting your business rates are going to increase by £3,000. The living wage will increase your cost by £20,000. So, whoa, that's already gone over, what you made last year. So this year, you're expecting to make a £3,000 loss. And actually, that's a big deal for a small business, and things might change during the year, but the last thing you want to be doing in advance is forecasting a loss. So what on earth do you do? Where do you go from here? How do you stem the flow of money coming out and not coming in as much as you'd like? And the last thing you want to do is stick your head in the sand. And that's an easy thing to do. Where do you go from here? Let's just pretend and forget about it and just carry on as we are. But that's not a good plan. That's not a good tactic. So we need to be a bit more proactive and think about what we can do and how we can make things change. So what does this mean for Meals to Dine For this year? Well, as I said, you're expecting money coming in of 300, woohoo! Money going out 303,000, no, not so good. So you're expecting that £3,000 loss. So what would be the first thing you'd want to do, James?
Well, unfortunately, because I'm an accountant, what I would do is get a spreadsheet open. There we go. That's that's what we do. As you can see, what I've done is put it into a little table. And to make a comparative, basically, what we want to do is, as Debbie said, we've got £300,000 coming in for 2015, but we've also got £300,000 coming in for 2016. So there's actually no movement there in revenue. Obviously, when we look at the expenditure, we've gone from 280 up to 303. So we can see a £23,000 movement, which then takes on what was reasonable £20,000 profit down to a £3,000 loss. So that identifies really a couple of areas to have a look at. But really, this exercise, just putting them side by side, is to have a look at a trend. Has your income gone up or down? If so, by how much? Has your expenditure gone up or down? If so, by how much? And it can then highlight areas of which you can then address. Then you can see where you might be able to save some costs, or gives you something to tackle and makes it a bit easier when you can compare years. You could put previous years on again from that, so you could go back to 14, 13 and just see how you're doing. Normally we just compare previous year. Obviously the advantage of management accounts and having accounts done on a monthly or quarterly basis is not only can you compare the previous year, but of course you can compare the same period in the previous year. So you can have a look at, say, January to March the previous year and say, well, actually we had this much in this period. So is there something specifically going on in this particular quarter that's affected my sales, rather than just looking at it on an annual basis?
And that's a really good thought, actually, James, because that means you could take action a bit quicker than waiting for your year end, then, doesn't it? You could be a bit more proactive if you can see that your months are changing compared to previous ones.
Absolutely, and that's the key. Why larger companies have got management accountants essentially, and are looking at their accounts on a month-by-month basis, so they can see how they've performed. On a month, accounts are usually prepared literally within a couple of weeks, and then they can take action then and there, really, and start to actually drive the business. Instead of being reactive and waiting for accounts to come in, they can then see what's happening and take some action and actually use accounts for positive use then to actually drive your business, look at growth, see what action you can take so that you're affecting your business, early on, and taking those steps to prevent hopefully a loss from occurring in the first place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's really important, not just the years, but try and have a look at your months, people like James are around, to help you have a look at a month by month and understanding the trends. So, if this is the sort of service that you might like going forward, give James a shout, because he can help you with all this type of thing, more than just the people that do your tax returns and close your accounts at the end of the year. At least you can take really good, strong, proactive decisions as you're going through the year. And, when you've got good decisions, you've got to get a stronger business going forward. So, it all comes down to understanding what's happening within your business. And, do you really understand what's happening? If let us know in the chats, tell us if you understand, if understand the figures that you're having. Do you look at them every month? Do you understand, the ups and downs and the changes in your business? Do you have cyclical cycles? And that means, do you have the changes? Is the summer months quiet, but you get really busy in the winter and Christmas? Are the different months of the year that are really good for you to sell things? So if you maybe sell ice cream, say, you could be great during the summer months, but become the winter, that's when your sales drop off. And maybe that's when you have other different products and services that you can offer, that some are good in the summer to sell and some are more good in the winter. Maybe you do ice creams and brollies, so you can sell your brollies in the winter and sell your ice creams in the summer. But it's all about understanding how the figures are working for you and what you can do to take action to help improve your situation. So, okay, we get to this point, so where do we go from here? So we've had a look at we know we've got our forecasting a loss this year with Meals to Dine For. We've had a look at the trends. So we know what's happened. We know our customers are staying the same. And the only thing that's changing is the amount of costs that we're going to have this year. We've got more coming out of our pocket, which isn't great. But what do we do about it? How can we move forward? Well, this is what we can do. James, tell us, what can we do to save Meals to Dine For?
Well, it's far more difficult than it originally looks, but down to the most basic component parts, you've really only got two options, which are have a look at increasing revenue to come in or decreasing the costs coming out. Now, there's a number of ways to attack both of those, but clearly, in their most basic parts, that's literally all you can do. So we're going to have a look at what you could potentially do to increase some income coming in, and then also have a look at how we can decrease some costs going out. Obviously, a combination of the two is better than just attacking each one individually, but we're going to have a look at each one individually and see how a combination of both can result in changing our fortunes around.
Fab. So what would you suggest on this then?
Well, the obvious one, it's clearly there. We're not necessarily saying this is right or wrong, but what we should have a look at is your sales price. So can you increase your sales price? That's the obvious thing, isn't it? So if we take our fictional company, we've had £3,000 or £300,000 last year. We've got £300,000 this year. So we've got no real increase in revenue there. So can we actually have a look at putting our prices up? Really, that's the most obvious one. How will that impact our customers?
I suppose also, when did they last put up their prices? Because if they're charging, assuming they're going to charge the same price this time as last year, maybe it's been a couple of years since they've put their prices up.
Exactly. So customers always get a little bit funny when prices go up, but unfortunately, it's one of those necessary evils. We as customers ourselves have to bear the brunt of increasing costs. So, do we pass those costs then on to our customers by putting our prices up?
I think it maybe comes down to the focus that you're putting on it and not making it sound as, oh, I'm really sorry, they're going from £6 up to £7 or £10 up to £12 a meal or whatever it is, but actually focusing on that quality, focusing on the great stuff they're getting. What a fantastic service. They're getting the meal within a really, really short time slot. How does that compare with your competitors that you've got out there? Do you have any competitors that are providing exactly the same thing as you? People want to buy on the quality, they want to buy on your reputation, they want to buy all the great stuff that you can do. Maybe you locally source your ingredients, you know, you have some really, maybe you have a well-known chef cooking it for you. Maybe you have a celebrity chef working for Meals to Dine For. I don't know. I mean, but there's a price point. People will pay extra if they're thinking they're getting a really great service. Maybe your office staff are just phenomenal in the way they talk to people, in the speed of changing orders, and things like that. So, and maybe you even as a customer have an input into the types of meals you want. So it's all about perception. So if people think they're getting a good deal, they're actually more happier to pay a bit extra for your product or service because they think that they're getting a really good deal, they're getting something special, they're being treated well, you know, they're becoming part of your community, part of the ethos of what Meals to Dine For is, and people like that. They like to feel they're belonging to something and getting something special. Does that sound about right to you, James?
No, absolutely. Perfect. Shall we move on to the next?
Yeah.
Because what we want to have a look at is the first thing you should really do is have a look at your competition. There's bound to be competition, but just like there's hundreds of accountants out there, there's bound to be competition for your business as well. So what you want to do is have a look at your competition. What are they charging? And not just what are they charging, but what are they offering? So are they offering such a good quality? Are they offering such a good service? And how does that compare with the price that you're offering yourself? I mean, the question is, what are you worth? You know, it's no good, you know, artificially lowering the price and keeping yourself cheap. That's not doing anybody any favors. You know, you need to sell for what it's worth and what you can justifiably sell for, essentially.
So that's a tricky one, isn't it? Knowing what you're worth.
It is. I mean, we've all got ideas, haven't we? We've all got prices that we think we want to charge. It's putting them into comparison with what's out in the market. We all want to take a salary from our businesses. We all want to make a reasonable profit. So it's having a balancing act between what we want to charge potentially and what we can realistically get away with it based on what is essentially external market forces being our competition.
So the last thing I want to do is put you on the spot, but have you got any top tips in terms of how they might benchmark? Are there any good places or anything that we can look at that might help them?
Well, unfortunately, just a good trawl of the internet, really. I mean, Google your own business and what categories you're trying to sell at. So, for example, I'm a management accountant and I operate in Plymouth. So one of the things I will do is Google management accountants in Plymouth and see what comes up. Have a good nosy at what their websites, have a look at what services they offer. If needs be, you know, make a cheeky a phone call anonymously, see what they can offer, you know, in terms of price, see what sort of service they're offering. You don't need to actually go through and buy it, but a bit of market research, if you like, a bit of, I shouldn't call it underhand, but a bit of tactics, if you like, to try and see what competition you have got and what they're offering. So Google search, maybe some phone calls, yellow pages, if anybody still use that. But just have a really good note. Understanding your market's actually quite important so that you understand where you are in the market.
And actually, the internet just makes things so easy for doing that, doesn't it? You can really easily see what other people are offering and how you compare, but also like for like products and substitute products. So if you're providing your hot, freshly cooked meals, well, you have some companies out there that may be providing frozen meals that you know, delivering them to your door that you can heat yourself, and actually, you know, seeing how you compare money-wise with that, and also what the extra value is that you're adding, and then justifying that extra price as well. But it's really key, like James said, to sort of know what your competitors are offering your customers, because you want their customers to become your customers.
Absolutely.
So, right, do you know if you break even? Now that's interesting. What does that really mean then?
Well, essentially what we're looking at here is, again, having a look at what everything costs us. So going through line by line, what our raw materials cost, what our machinery costs, what our staff costs are, trying to apportion or allocate some overhead costs. Essentially, what we want to know is what's the absolute minimum we can sell our product for, and either make zero or a profit. Obviously, we certainly don't want to make a loss. So the break-even point is selling our goods and absolutely making no money at all. So we've literally got back what we've spent out. So it's knowing how much those costs come to, because then we obviously want to put a profit margin on top of that, which will then become our sales price. But of course, you've got to know what your costs are in the first place. So have a good old trawl through your, as I say, what your costs are, what your rent is, what your staff costs are, but what your material costs, what your products costing, so that you can really try and know, well, actually, this is the bare minimum that I can sell my goods for, and still, you know, cover all my costs. So we don't want to go any lower than that, unless your only other option is to throw it in the bin. Essentially, if something needs to go in the bin and selling it for some money, then that's obviously what you'll do. But until that point is reached, then obviously, you know, you just want to know your break-even points. You know what you can charge on top of that. That's your profit margin, essentially.
So what you're saying with that then really is that if something, you work out all your costs with your staff, your materials, and everything else that you have to pay, your rent and your rates and your lighting and everything else. So if all that costs you £100 and you're actually making £100, so it's £100 per meal and you're actually costing £100 per meal, well, that's kind of your break-even point, basically. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the minimum you want to sell it for, because at that price, at least you're covering your costs. No profit's better than a loss. So it's still not great, but that's at least knowing that gives you room for manoeuvre, if you like, to, as I say, to put something on top.
Okay. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about this, hasn't we? And this really, the whole thing around pricing is quite tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, so what this slide's looking at really is to come at, you've looked at both sides now, hopefully. So what we've looked at is some competition to see what our competition's selling at. We've also looked at our break-even point, which then shows the minimum we should be selling for. So what we've then got is a range, if you like, of price points of anywhere in between. So the other point of looking at the competition, as we said, is not just price, but also quality of goods, quality of service. So what are you offering in comparison to them? So is your product or service better quality than what they're offering? If it is, you can justify a higher price. Do you take the strategic business decision to just sell it cheap, get it out the door, low quality, but sell it cheap? There's nothing wrong with that. But if that's the market that you're in, then clearly you can't be selling it for higher prices than people that are offering it at better quality. So it's, again, understanding what's in the market, what other competitors are selling, where you fit into that market. Are your products better quality, or are you offering better service? And then justifying your price point so that you can say, well, actually, you're getting better quality, or, you know, we offer better service, or, you know, this is why our price is higher.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's a really key point, isn't it? It's actually knowing where your niche is and who it comes back to knowing who you want your customer to be, your ideal customer, isn't it? Like you say, whether you want a high-end customer and have a niche product, or whether you want a cheap product, you know, that you sell lots of quantity of it at a cheap price, which is absolutely fine, either model, but it's knowing who you're pitching to, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
So,
go on. So this was just to highlight really that what we've got there is 61% of customers. Again, I just Googled that, so that comes from a survey. I'm fairly sure if you look around at other surveys, that percentage will move slightly. But essentially 61% of customers will pay a higher price if they believe that they're getting exactly the same quality. So we all know that prices go up. It's just getting that price rise, which sits fairly well with the customer, that they're happy to pay that. And the whole 80-20% rule there is really, it's not an exact science, but normally 80% of revenue will come from 20% of your customer base. Or obviously, to turn that around, 20% of your, say, revenue will cost you 80% of time. So there's certain customers that you'll be putting in a lot of effort to keep them happy, to make their sales. And is that justified? Can you find some more profitable customers? You know, are you absolutely stacked up with orders that you can't take anymore, but actually dumping a few that are not making you much profit and getting a few in that are, doesn't sound very good, but you know, this is business after all. So, you know, it's about balancing the time and effort involved in servicing certain customers. So usually summed up by customer profitability analysis, which customers are making the money and what time and effort should be input, if you like, to service those customers and keep them happy.
So that's really interesting, because for Meals to Dine For, then, if they've been targeting their business at families and, you know, door selling, you know, to their homes, then maybe they could do something like selling to a residential home, selling, you know, so they're doing lots of meals in one go rather than just door to door, you know, individual homes. So, you know, that's a really good idea. You know, it's about looking who you can sell to and whether you can change your customers slightly to make it more profitable for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then that Meals Could Dine For do.
Well, obviously that's just one side of the coin. To turn it over, now we can have a look at trying to reduce some costs if possible. So have a look at what costs we've got and see where we can make a few savings, again, which will hopefully then bring us back on target for a profit, at least at the end of the year.
So I suppose the first thing we need to do is actually look at how you know, what we're spending out on money on every month.
Yeah, so what we've got here is some fixed costs. So it's understanding which costs are fixed and which ones move with the volume of sales. So here we're just looking at fixed costs. So we're looking at rent, light, heat, phone, insurance. It's not an exhaustive list. There's bound to be other costs that you've got there. The simplest way is the cost of doing nothing. So the costs which you will incur regardless of whether you sell anything. So those are some costs that we'll be looking at of where we can make some savings. And then if we move on a slide, the next one is variable costs. So this is then your actual, you know, goods, if you like. So what are you selling? Are you selling products or are you maybe selling services? In this example, we're selling meals. So our variable costs are our raw ingredients in various quantities. And then potentially we've put it there, staff. You might have staff on an hours basis, in which case if they need to work a few more hours in the month, then it'll cost you a bit more. Staff could arguably be a fixed cost. That was a bit could be a bit of both, but it's understanding which costs will move quantity. So if you've got low orders in a month, then obviously your variable costs will be lower. If you've got some massive orders in a month, if you have a good month, lots of orders come in, then those variable costs are going to go up. So you're going to have to buy all those ingredients to service all those meals. And while all of that's happening, your fixed costs are just going to remain the same.
So these are all good things to be able to put in that cash flow forecast you talked about earlier, isn't it?
That's it. Understanding, like we say, which costs are fixed. So we can say, well, we're going to pay out the same amount each month. Or you made a good point, you might pay, like you say, broadband or so for 3 months. But you can put those fixed costs in. And because they're fixed, you can, you know, quite reliably sort of forecast that across. So we've got those costs in every month so we can see what it's costing us. And then with the variable costs, we do sort of need to know then what our orders are so that we can then forecast how those variable costs will move each month and give us an overall cost together.
Fab. So this just gives us a bit of an overview of your typical month then. So as James said, you could have your staffing at the top could be either their costs could fluctuate depending on whether you have a member of staff that you pay that you have a contract for 10-15 hours per week, and actually when you're particularly busy you give them some overtime or you give them some extra hours, so that will make it variable. Your rent probably is fixed. You could have lease, your vehicles could be leased, which means you have a monthly fee to pay back on those. Your utilities will probably stay the same throughout the year, but then your things like your raw ingredients, your vegetables will vary depending on what's on your menu, will vary depending on the amount of orders and things like that you've got coming in. So staff is a big issue for a lot of people, isn't it, James? So can we have a quick run through on this?
Yeah, what I want to do is just make it a little bit topical as well. So obviously, not to bore it up too much, but obviously in the budget we had some minimum wage increases, certainly for the 25 and over. So whilst I'm certainly not advocating some child labour, of course, we can certainly have a look at our staffing profile, possibly to save a few pounds, if you like. So, for example, I use an example. I've got a 16-year-old daughter who's currently out looking for a Saturday job. So, bearing in mind Meals to Dine For operates 363 days of the year, you know, you are going to need weekend staff. You are going to need staff for bank holidays and other holidays. So, utilising students or anybody else is quite a good way to, you know, save some money. And obviously they do want to work, you know, they do want to sort of get on the work ladder. They do want to work those weekends that other people may not. So it's a good way of sort of mixing up your staff profile, essentially. We've also got some apprentices there. So again, it may be worth offering an apprenticeship with a local college or something like that. Maybe you could train, in this example, a kitchen hand. You can pay them the apprentice rate. And of course, you're training them in the process. So not only you're saving some money, but you're also getting an extra resource in the kitchen. But you could train up to be, you may potentially become the head chef. You know, there's all sorts of positive connotations that are associated with as I say, just mixing up your staff profile a little bit. As I say, I'm certainly not advocating child labour or age discrimination in any way, shape, or form. But utilising, you know, staff that are available at certain times and are flexible are certainly quite crucial in sort of these type of markets. What we've also got in the bottom there is just to make people aware that, you know, they've just upped the employer's allowance. So employers obviously have to pay employers' national insurance or above a certain threshold. So the government now will give you up to £3,000 towards those employers' national insurance costs to make employing staff easier. So, you know, that a lot of people may not know that that allowance exists. So it's about knowing to take allowances where you can. So that's just to highlight that one, really, of where you could potentially, you know, just have a little think about saving some money.
Yeah, that employer's allowance is good news, isn't it? That extra bit of good news brings us on to rates as well.
Business rates again, yeah, as I say, I was trying to keep it a little bit topical. So yes, the small business rate relief. So obviously 100% relief for properties with a rateable value of £6,000 or less. So great news for small businesses. If you're just renting small properties, or, you know, there's your rates bill saved, which is great news. Obviously, as I've put there, that rate relief sort of disappears on a sliding scale as that sort of rateable value increases. But what I've put on the slide there is a link to the valuation agency's website. So if you click on that, put in your postcode, it will tell you your rateable value for the premises that you're in. And again, in a similar way to benchmarking against competitors, it's a good way of having a look around and seeing what other people are paying, because you may be paying too much. So, you know, you could potentially challenge the business rates, because you could look around at other businesses and say, well, actually, they're paying less than what I'm paying. Why am I paying so much? So you can submit a challenge to the valuation agency with some, you'll have to justify it, of course, and potentially you could save. The next business rate reviews in 2017. So again, a good time, if you like, to potentially challenge those business rates and try and get those business rates down as low as you can possibly get them. I do exercise one small bit of caution. It's not quite relevant, but it is. I do recall reading in the news some time ago that a gentleman that lived in a cul-de-sac checked his council tax rates. That's why I say it's not quite appropriate, but he had a look and he was a band higher than the rest of the street when he was paying his council tax rates. So he challenged that with the council, but he didn't quite get the answer he was expecting, which was, instead of putting his rates down to everyone else's, they then put the whole street up to what he was on. So he became very unpopular very quickly. Just a small little side story, but you know, you can challenge those business rates, and I have successfully done that before, and that can save you some money. So always worth a go.
That's really, really good news, James. And just to clarify, the website he's talking about is www.2010.voa.gov.uk. So, you know, definitely go and have a look. That's some great advice. Thank you for that. Another cost. What other costs can we save when we're thinking of meals to dine for, or any other business in general, really?
Yeah, it's just looking just through our entire cost base. So obviously, I've just split it into two bits really. So we've got our cost of sales. So this is our direct products or services. So looking in our example here, meals to dine for, our cost of sales is essentially our ingredients. So are we getting the best value? So if we're getting good quality ingredients, organically sourced, and you've got a good reliable supplier, then you may not want to challenge that. But again, it's always worth having a look around at other suppliers and just seeing where you could potentially save. You could save by ordering larger quantities and getting some bulk discounts. Obviously, that does affect your working capital, because obviously ordering larger quantities will be a larger cash outflow at periodic intervals. But if you've got those reserves tucked away, then you may be able to justify those and save some money just by ordering a bit more and getting that sort of bulk discount. The other items there are just, again, what we do in our daily lives. Have a look at our rents, our utilities. When was the last time you changed utility supplier? Where can we save money? Do you leave a light on overnight in your shop to highlight your shop front or something like that? Can you save money by using LEDs or something like that? There's many ways to save some costs. Motor and transportation, obviously fuel's a bit out of our hands, but again, we can have a look at delivery routes. Are we being the most efficient with our delivery routes? Could we design our delivery routes a bit better so that we're not just driving all across town in traffic? Can we get a bit more of a sensible route plan so that we can save some costs? Stationery is always one to save costs. I went to a business event last night and took a few pens home. So I'm not suggesting theft by any means, but stationery. Have a look around at your stationery suppliers and just see where you can save. Professional fees. There's lots of things we pay for, accountants being one of them. Where can you save some money? It's just a case of really just having a look around, looking at the competition. It all involves time, unfortunately, and it's just putting that time in to see if you can save some money. And what you also have there is, I'll put at the bottom, is some capital allowances. So again, this is more a bit of tax planning, if you like. There are certain limits on what you can invest, and of course, it's just written off within the year, off against your tax liability. So if you were sort of delaying investing in a piece of machinery for any reason, for any length of time, you could say, well, actually now's a good time because I can offset it against profits, or I could delay it till next year when I think I'll make a bit more of a profit. So there's a little bit of tax planning that can also be involved to mitigate unnecessary expenditure.
Okay, brilliant. So I'm really hoping that you now feel a bit more of a happy gorilla with everything. We've had lots of different animal references going through, which is kind of a bit of my theme really, which is about following the herd. So hopefully this has highlighted some different ways and great ways of thinking about things in a bit less technical detail and a bit more of a nice, easy language, sort of slightly more fun way. So hopefully, now it's really important to be thinking about looking at your money every month, understanding what's coming in and what's going out every month can help you feel in a bit more of a peaceful, calm state about your business and help you to focus on being creative and innovative. So just to say thank you for joining today, we've got a couple of special offers. So from me, I've got a free ebook as a quick guide to the value of investment appraisal. So investment appraisal is all about if you've got a project or you've got a couple of projects that you're thinking about maybe doing, and it's looking at whether those projects will be financially a good idea for you, and helping you decide maybe which project will give you the best return. So if you're interested in anything of that, I'll redirect you at the end and you can download that for free, absolutely free, all yours. So, hope that that's of use to you. And James, quickly, because we're almost running out of time, do you want to take us through your as well?
Just very quickly, a 45-minute financial checkup. So that's just me having a look at your accounts. If you want me to just see, again, those movements, have a look at some trends, see just analysing those accounts and just potentially seeing what we could do. Again, it's all about driving business forward and making you as successful as we possibly can.
See, that's a really fantastic offer, Jane. A whole 45 minutes of a financial checkup. So, if that's something you want, definitely take advantage of that, because, that sort of no obligation whatsoever. I know James quite well, and, he be just because he wants you to just be in the best place possible. So that's a fantastic offer. Definitely take that up. And, a little bit more about James. Tell us a tiny bit more about your business before we close.
Yes, very quickly. So as we've discussed, so what we look at is preparing accounts, more frequently, preferably monthly, but quarterly if your business isn't too large. So it's about providing you feedback on those results. So it's mainly internal, so they don't get sent anywhere. They're not for company's house. They're not for HMRC. It's just so that you can see the numbers, see where you're going, and then having a look at forecasting, having a look at what's going on, what sales you think you're going to get, what costs, and really try and project forward how your business is going to go. That ties in with some cash flow management. Have a look at how your cash is, your working capital cycle, and then potentially some profitability analysis on customers. Which customers are profitable, which ones aren't so much, where's all your effort going, those sorts of things. Again, it's all just trying to get the most out of your business.
Wonderful. I mean, that's a really good thing to do. It helps you to be on top of where you're going, and help you have some really good planning, which is a great way to get you as a herd leader for your business. So thank you so much, James, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure doing this with you.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you to our viewers for putting up with me.
It's been really great. So yeah, thanks again to James. And I've got some more series coming up. I do different things as well with webinars. So check me out. You can check my website, it's whyfollowtheherd.com. Check me out on Facebook, it's Why Follow the Herd, or Twitter is Why Follow Herd. Why Follow the Herd is too many letters, so it's Why Follow Herd. But if you want to sign up to my mailing list and you want to find out any more about my free webinars that I do, please just head over to my my website, and I'll redirect you there now so you can get a copy of your free download on investment appraisal. And thank you for joining us, and I hope to catch you on a webinar soon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.